wonky before it's over. Good evening. Good evening. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Buddy Gray, and I'm the pastor of this sweet church called Hunter Street. We're glad that you are in our building. We do all that we can to impact our community. We host a lot of school functions, a lot of community functions. As a matter of fact, what was on the screen a second ago, back that up. If you have a child and you're interested in protecting your child in the realm of social media, we're going to have a conference. You can see the information on there. But one of the stats I shared Sunday was the first exposure to pornography. You know how old a child is? 8. And therefore, we want to do this. And, if you have teenagers, you need to know that they have apps that they can hide things from you. And we're going to expose that night. So if you want to be a part of that, that would be great. If you need to use the facilities, if you go out the door, either left or right, you're able to do that. But I'm so glad that you are here tonight. I know that you love Hoover. I love Hoover. All my kids have gone through the Hoover school system. I live right next door to one of the schools. I think that we have a wonderful town with great opportunities. And what I'd like to do before Dr. Murphy comes is just let me pray for us. Let's pray. Oh Lord, in your word, you tell us that if anybody lacks wisdom, all they have to do is ask, and you will give generously. And Lord, I know a lot of people are looking for your wisdom as we think about our schools. And we're thankful for the teachers. We're thankful for the administrators. We're thankful for all the people that make this system so great. But especially, Lord, we're thankful for the families and for their children. And Father, we pray that in the days and weeks and months ahead that you will give wisdom to our leaders. And Father, we look forward to coming together as a community as never before. And we are trusting in you. And Lord, we are thankful for Dr. Murphy and the way that you have prepared her for such a time as this. And we ask that you will give her the wisdom that comes only from you. We love you and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'm Don Hewlin, Principal Hoover High School, and I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our new superintendent. She's done a phenomenal job under some really tough circumstances in her short time here at Hoover City Schools. So again, she has a lot of great tasks ahead of her. So I think with your help and with administrators and folks in our district, we can guide her and you guys can guide her in that path that will make Hoover City Schools even better than it is already. So without further ado, Dr. Murphy.
I want to thank Don. Don's had a tough week. And so I want to thank Don for his leadership at Hoover High School. And, as we go home to say our prayers, I would really ask that you remember a very troubled child that through the process of this week we have identified. And that child is receiving appropriate help and support. But the work of Don Hewlin and SROs and counselors and interventionists and just the countless hours of time and energy discovering who this child is that so desperately reached out to us. Please pray for that. Pray for that child. And through the course of this, we've actually discovered that there are other children in our schools. Don has discovered other children who are struggling, who've been bullied, who don't feel necessarily as embraced and as loved as we thought they felt. And, in all bad things, there are those opportunities for us to find the good. And it's good that we've identified this child. It's good that we've identified Don, probably 2 or 3 other children who really are kind of searching and needing. And through this process, they opened up and shared some of their struggles. So it's been a tough week. And I just ask that you pray for all of our children. Because there is power in prayer, and God knows our children need our love, support, nurture, and they certainly need our prayers. So thank you for allowing me that editorial thought and comment. Buddy, thank you so much. Anytime we need a facility, they are just so accommodating here at Hunter Street Baptist. And I'm so grateful for you and your congregation that so warmly embraces us when we want to come out to have such an occasion as this. We have the chair of our board, Derek Murphy. Derek, would you stand? And I know that Craig Kelly is in the back and do perhaps some over. And yes, Gene Smith with our city. Gene, would you stand? Not a board member, but Gene's with the city. We're grateful that he's joining us. He was at our last meeting. So Gene, thank you so much. And I'm sorry. I just drew a blank. I'm so sorry. John. I couldn't get John to come to save my soul. John is such a great guy. John, I can't believe that I forgot your name. I have to tell you a really cool thing that John did. The first time I came into this community to visit, and I believe it may have been the mayor's breakfast, or I don't remember John, but after I met John, he prepared a quick little handwritten note that he sent to me. You know, that's almost a dead art or a dying art to take the time to craft or pen a note, and he was so sweet. John, I can't believe I forgot your name, but it just must have been one of those senior moments. But thank you for your support and your leadership with our city. So with all of that, and if I've overlooked anybody, we're all important, but should I've overlooked someone, accept my apology. I am delighted to be here tonight to spend time. This is our second rezoning community meeting. We had a very positive, cordial, productive opportunity on Tuesday evening at Brops Gap, and so thank you for making this a priority tonight. I am not here to pull up on the screen for you this evening the plan. The plan is to hear you. The plan is to let you share. The plan is to let you talk. And I'm hoping through the process of this, we have 5 community meetings that are scheduled. This is number 2. And I'm hoping through the process of these meetings that one of the things that we'll hear and begin to discover are those common threads of conversation that we realize we keep hearing. This is resonating with us. These are things that are important to our community, and we want to make sure that we're very thoughtful about those as the plan starts to come together. So I can tell you there is no hidden plan. I told the group on Tuesday. For those of you who were at Tuesday, I'll try not to repeat much, but there's not a plan in my desk drawer, in the filing cabinet. There is no plan. I want to start with a clean slate. I do want to tell you that a lot of work, time, and energy has gone into this process well before you ever heard the name Kathy Murphy, and I respect all of the work and all of the time and all of the energy that has been invested in front of my arrival. And so kudos to the process that preceded me. I feel like, however, as your new superintendent, it's important for me to come out and give you the opportunity to help me frame this, okay? So there is no plan conceptually in my mind. I'm starting to think about Hoover and think what those zones, what our current attendance zones look like, and you know, if you shifted this or moved that, or what all that might look like. So from that end, that's the only plan I have in mind, and I'm very hopeful that you'll share some of your passion tonight about how you want us to proceed with this process. So let me just share with you the time frame, and then I'll zip it and let you come to the microphones and start to share with us briefly here. The process: 5 community meetings. I have plans to get out to all of our schools for a faculty meeting. I think it would be remiss of me not to go out to our schools because, by the way, lots of people are sending me emails now. And many of those emails are coming from our own personnel who are saying, hey, what if we did A and did B and C? And so they're thinking and reasoning and processing out there, and I'm respectful of that. And so I'll get out to faculty meetings with all of our schools, give our teachers and our staff, our principals, opportunities to share. We have our last community meeting on November the 12th, and hopefully before we leave for the Christmas holidays, and hopefully well in front of that, I'll get out to all of our schools for faculty meetings. So we'll have input from all of our faculties and staff, we'll have input from our community, and during the interim of that, we're going to use a system called a Geographic Information System, a GIS system, and we're going to start to look where currently our zones are and start to look at how we might, and by the way, it's just really cool technology. You know, you just shift the line and pick up an extra street or pick up additional houses, and it immediately tells you how many of those individuals are minority or white. It gives you all kinds of great information about what houses or what streets you just picked up. Mentioning the minority and white composition, there are a couple of things that are bringing us to this rezoning conversation. The first has absolutely nothing to do with the Department of Justice. It is our need to make sure that we're looking at our facilities and that we're best utilizing our facilities. So, for example, we have one of our schools that is only at 52% capacity, one of our elementary schools. We have another of our elementary schools that's at 108% capacity. So from just that one example, what we have is really a disproportionate number of students in one school, overutilized, if you will, because it exceeds 100% of current capacity, and one that's very underutilized. So for us as an internal assignment, if you will, we need to look at the utilization of our facilities, make sure we're maximizing the use of our facilities, and also making sure that we have a balanced distribution of our students. Okay? So that's reason one. Reason two is very secondary, but it's still an important reason, and that is that our school district wishes to acquire what's called unitary status. I don't want to get into all the unitary status. It's not our purpose, but let me see if I can kind of nutshell and frame it up a little bit for you. We are seeking unitary status. When we pulled away from Jefferson County was under the desegregation guidelines at that time. So once we removed ourselves from Jefferson County, we brought that along with us, that we also were under the eye of the desegregation ruling. There are what happens to be called green factors, and there are 6 green factors that we have to pay attention to. And I'll elaborate to whatever extent, but again, let me just mention them and you may have questions. But those 6 green factors include the use of our facilities. So the Department of Justice wants to know how we're using our facilities. They want to know if we're underutilizing, overutilizing, or more minority students at one school versus another school. The whole idea of our facilities is something that they will review and that obviously we will review. They are also interested in our buses, our transportation. Do we have a preponderance of minority students who are all on a bus or a couple of buses? Now, here's the complexity of that. Many of our students live in communities of individuals who look like them, just based on choice, how people choose communities. But they are concerned about our transportation. Are we expecting our minority students, for example, to come from a longer distance or get transported a longer distance back home? So those are things in transportation. One of the things that I believe will help us with the green factor of transportation is that we chose to take off the table the conversation about fee-based transportation. And so that'll help us. I'm not going to say that was the fix nor the remedy, and that one's done and we'll be moving on. But I certainly think that that will not be a stumbling block for us now that we've chosen to take that off the table. The Department of Justice will also look at extracurricular. And from that, do we have a good opportunity for all of our students to participate in as many extracurriculars as they wish to participate in? Do we limit some students from being able to be in a club or an organization based on color? Certainly we don't do that. But that's another area that will be looked at. The Department of Justice is concerned about how we assign teachers, how we assign staff, and how we assign students. So thus, this conversation brings us tonight to how do we assign students and what is the distribution of those students and the balance of those students. Again, the Department of Justice's concern, very honestly, is the minority population of our students, most specifically our African American children, and making sure that there's no disparity, inequities, disproportionality, or any of those kinds of things that's going on as it relates to the way we support, treat, or interact with our minority students. So, but that's a secondary piece. We just know that we need to get it right for ourselves. Secondarily, as we do that, the Department of Justice hopefully will overcome and be able to acquire the unitary status piece. So, we have our community meetings, we have our faculty meetings. Hopefully all that happens before Christmas. We'll begin crafting this school zone plan using the geographic information system. We will put a plan together. We will bring it back out to the public. Now that's when I think probably we'll fill the church and go to the balcony and whatever else, because people are going to want to know, what does that thing look like? Where are my kids going to school? Let me say this, I respect that. I am a mother. I understand when you're about to shift my elementary, middle school, high school kid around, how that feels. And so I'm very sensitive to that. I care about that. I'm pretty passionate about my daughter, and I know you're passionate about your children as well. You should be. So I do want you to know I get it. I do want you to know that I know there's a lot of passion and concern and interest that comes along with such a conversation as this. I hope in January we can get back out and let our community review the plan. I would love it if as early as February we might get the plan to the board. If not February, I hope not later than March, we would put the plan out to our board. And then if we get it out to them in February, hopefully after a month's review, they would approve it in March. But if we don't get it to them until March, hopefully then they have an opportunity to approve that by April. I don't think it's fair for us to drag this thing out. Here is one of the things that I think I'm hearing fairly clearly from our community, and that is, if this is something we're going to do, if this is something we have to do, please listen to us, but please get this thing done, and please tell us what it is, and let's move on. The uncertainty of this, I think, is very troubling to many of our families, and it would be very troubling for me if I just wasn't sure and I was on hold and just didn't seem to get defined. So I'm always reminded of the Aesop's fable of the horse that stood and looked at the two luscious stacks of hay and starved to death because he couldn't figure out which one to eat. Well, we're not going to starve to death, and I am absolutely convinced we'll eat the right stack of hay on this one. So I so much want to get this right, and we need you to help us get it right. I'm just not smart enough to have arrived on the scene with all the answers and all the fix and all the remedy, and voila, let me show it to you tonight, and here it is. So that's why you're here, and I'm looking forward to your comments. So that's why we're doing rezoning. That's sort of the plan about how this will unfold. There is no plan, again, that's going to flash up here. And so I want to give you an opportunity. We have a couple of microphones. If you would come up, tell us what your name is. Tell us if you're a parent, or maybe you're a community leader, or maybe just an interested citizen, whatever your capacity, if you wish to share that with us. And then please share with us your thought. Ask us your question. This Tuesday night kind of turned into a question and answer exchange. I was able to answer most of the questions, but then I'm just going to tell you if I can't. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you one that I can't answer tonight, and it probably was the one question that I just had to say to the parent who asked it. I don't know. It's a great question. We're going to have to think about it. We're going to have to process that a little bit, and it's the question about being grandfather. I do understand, particularly, and for those of you who are in elementary and middle school, I know for you too, but let me just take it to the secondary level first. So I realize that if your child is already at one of our high schools, how that would feel to say, I know you went to school with these kids all this time, but we're going to lift you in your junior year and we're going to shift you over to the other high school for your senior year. That's just pretty dumb. I don't see us doing that. I see us being very sensitive to the fact that once our children are at that high school level, you know, we're not looking to start snatching sophomores, juniors, seniors, or freshmen up. And you know, I would like to believe that we can allow those students to complete that high school. Now, the question the parent asked was at the elementary level. So if my child's been there since kindergarten, first and second and third and fourth, and I think was the question, maybe the child was at the 5th or 6th grade, could my child stay there? I don't know. But we'll figure this out with you as we go forward. So I'm not standing here with all the answers, but I hear the question. It's a great question, and we'll be very reflective and thoughtful about how we respond to that. Okay? So, did I miss saying anything from my staff you think is important? Yeah, and also, let me just go ahead and share with you a couple of resources that we have out there. So not only are we having our community meetings, but we have a couple of resources. If you want to give us feedback, what are you thinking? Please start thinking smarter than that. Whatever your feedback needs to be to us, there is the rezoning at hoover.k12.al.us. Please write that down and feel free. We will monitor this. We're going to read, we're going to share, we're going to talk. If you want to look at some resources, we've not yet posted up our bullet points from our Tuesday night meeting, but they should go up hopefully tomorrow. So what we'll do after every one of our community meetings is I have recorders who are up here vigorously taking notes. They're going to put those notes, those bullets, those thoughts together, and you can go out to that resource after each one of our community meetings, and you'll see some of those highlighted, bulleted thoughts and comments that come from our community meetings. So a couple of additional resources above and beyond our time together here and above and beyond when we come back together to start to share with you the plan. Okay? So, make a mad dash up to the mic, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions.
I'm good. They put those questions back up. My name is Consuela Dambrino, and I am a parent. I have a 12-year-old in the 7th grade at August Middle School. It's hard to say that after you said Brock's Gap for 2 years. And then I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten at South Shades Crest. What I would like to ask of the school board and yourself and your GIS system, it's not as simple as taking a compass and putting it on the school and drawing a circle. That's not going to get 3/4 of the kids at that school. However, what our action committee last time this came up, we were rethink the rezone for South Shades Crest. And we all live down South Shades Crest Road. It is a 2-lane road that has cliffs on either side of it, much like regular Shades Crest Road. It's the only way to get to any school in Hoover. If you live down that road, we have families that live across Morgan Road that are still zoned for South Shades Crest Road. When you are doing your rezoning, please consider traffic flow and traffic patterns. Last year when this was done, we had parents that used GoPros and tracked their commute to take their children to school. One of them, it took her 16 minutes to go 2 miles. Another one, it took her 30 minutes to go 2 miles. And another one, it took her an hour to go 7 miles because we have to go down that road. So when you're considering which elementary school to send us to, please take that into consideration, what our child's commute is going to be. My other concern would be bus routes. I know last year, and I'm seeing it impacting a neighbor this year, there was a Brock's Gap bus that was not full. Use of facilities, use of resources, we need to optimize what we can do. However, they put apartment children on the bus, which is not my problem. My problem is those poor apartment children are getting on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to a 5th and 6th grade school. That was not really 5 or 10 minutes down the road for them. I know if I was a working parent, I would want to make sure my child got on the bus, and then I would have to get myself to work. Most of them probably don't have time to drive their child to school and then to work. So a lot of us count on the bus to get our kids to school. I just can't imagine putting my 5-year-old on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to her elementary school or to another school that's an hour and a half later before it started.
Thank you. That's a great point. I actually met this morning with James Newcomb, who is currently our transportation director, but he is moving to the University of Alabama to work with their transportation department. But he and I had some time to spend together today. And one of the things that we really need to make sure that we do, which is to your point, is we really need to use a program that we have, which is called EduLog. And that system is designed to help us make the very best decisions as it relates to distances for children. Now, I don't believe that we can completely depend on a piece of software to make all the best decisions, because that software doesn't necessarily know about some of our streets or the traffic or whatever. But I'm really hoping that we can do a better job of looking at our routes and use that tracking system. Melody Green, Assistant Superintendent, is responsible for that part of our work, and I see her taking lots of good notes as it relates to that. So, thank you, because again, very possible through this process, all of our students stand to be impacted in some way. And so transportation will be impacted, and we understand that, and so your point is well taken, and thank you for sharing it. We've taken note of it. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. I want to thank you for coming out and hosting these community meetings. I'm Steve Grondin. I'm a 24-year resident of Hoover. My son Joseph attends Trace Crossings. I want to say that we're very pleased with Trace and what he's been able to accomplish there. One thing that I would like to start off with is we heard a little bit tonight, but what I hadn't heard before was kind of an articulated set of principles that are going to be used to judge the rezoning program. I think most people would say that one priority would be neighborhood schools, but on the other side is a school system where each of the schools reflects the diversity of the whole city. And like you mentioned, you've got a challenge because a lot of times, especially when you consider apartments versus homes, there's a disparity in the type of incomes and races and just all sorts of different factors. So we understand that those are competing priorities, but saying these are the things we're judging on would be important to hear. And like you said, use of facilities. I also mentioned the travel time for students, especially students on buses, but as well as parents. Birmingham has problems because of its natural geography. You've got these ridges, these 2-lane roads that are one way in and out. So recognizing, understanding the limitations that affect our guiding principles, it would be very helpful to have that articulated so that people feel things are less arbitrary and that here's our reasoning behind it. So continued communication would be an important issue.
May I answer or share just a little bit, because if you
Sure,
move too far, I'll forget what you're saying. So let me just address what he's saying. One of the things that we know is critically important is neighborhood schools. This school district, nor the Department of Justice for that matter, are interested in lifting students up out of a community and scattering them to the wind. The Department of Justice regularly uses the word enclave. They're not interested in picking up and creating an enclave and moving students out of a community just so they can go and distribute those students in different directions to create any kind of diversity by virtue of that. So one of the things that I think is really important, and I've heard the Department of Justice say the same thing, so we're certainly on the same page on this, and that is that we want all of our school zones to have a contiguous boundary so that all the students in that boundary all go to the same school. That we're not picking up pockets of children out of different communities and sending them different ways. And so even though the Department of Justice is very interested in looking at our disbursement of students and our diversity of students, the Department of Justice has very clearly said to me, while we're trying to create or reduce disproportionality, we're not interested in lifting our minority students and inconveniencing them further by taking them some long real distance just so we can go put them in another school and go, hey, we've created some equity. So that's not the intent or the purpose.
Yeah,
a contiguous boundary.
And I think that you will, many people would feel that that's one of the failings of our current zoning plan, is it seems to neither increase the diversity nor keep people in their neighborhood schools. I think most people would say that that's something that's lacking right now in how we're zoned. Finally, grandfathering is definitely something that I know a lot of people are interested in. And I would mention, though, that sometimes finishing out elementary school where you started is at least as important, if not more important, because of the age and emotional maturity of the children, compared to changing in high school. I certainly understand people who go, I've been here 3 years, I want to graduate from the school I went to. I certainly understand that. But I think, being at an elementary school for 5 years, if you're finishing in 4th grade, is certainly a little bit more in the emotional tender years. So that's, you, as part of building a zoning plan, you not only have to think about today's students, but you're also considering about how the children who are already born and, maybe they're infants and toddlers, where they're going to come up and where they're going to do. So hopefully the information you're getting is not solely limited to school-age children, nor people enrolled just in preschool, but also infants and toddlers, trying to come up with a plan that will not be changing radically from year to year. We understand things develop and change, and you might have to adjust boundaries as schools get underutilized, people, neighborhoods age, fewer children, but the stability of a plan is another item that I would consider as a guiding principle, that we build a plan that isn't going to have to change 2 years from now radically because we didn't anticipate, to the best of our ability, what the future demographics of the area would be.
Yeah, thank you. And so the city is working with us in this way. The city has allowed us to have access to some of their projection data where they're anticipating some growth in our city, where they're anticipating homes to be built or apartments to be built. So we're really trying to look not just right now, what does this look like, but look at this over a period of time where homes will be built, single family dwelling homes and other multi-family dwellings. So that's a good point. This is not something that is true of Hoover, but some school districts, certainly some of your larger school districts, and I shared this also the other night, and again, don't panic. I'm not saying this will happen to us, but some school districts, as soon as they open this year, they immediately look at their population, the demographics, where are all the students, and they immediately begin planning for where those students will be the next year, because they are constantly, every year, moving those school zones to maintain some balance of what they're looking for in their buildings and the diversity that they need. Now, not something that we need to do, but some school districts rezone, larger school districts rezone on a pretty frequent and regular basis. But I hope that we can get it right, and if we have to have any modifications in the next few years, I hope it's not anything that's some wholesale huge domino everybody gets rolled around impact. But thank you for your comments.
Hello, Dr. Murphy. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak out. My name is Wayne Seals. I'm a parent. I have 3 children in Hoover schools, one at South Shadescrest in 1st grade, one at Bumpus Middle School, and one at Hoover High School. So that presents a unique situation for me, depending on how the rezoning goes, as to where I've got to get 3 different students, or the high schooler's about to start driving, so that's not an issue, or she actually does now. But still, it creates a big issue. So I would like them to consider, there may be other scenarios where there may be parents in my situation where they've got 1 in each elementary, middle, and high, or maybe just 2, but that creates an impact on how they've got to travel. So it goes back to echo both the gentleman before me and the lady at first about the situation of traffic. I'm one of those that it takes me 15 minutes to get my 1st grader to South Shadescrest, and I live 9/10 of a mile from the school. I would like to see maybe some of y'all go out and drive those routes and actually experience and see, and then see that when you change, what is really going to happen here. That's my biggest issue, really more so than what school my children goes to as far as demographics, who the teachers are. I've been in Hoover School since '96 is when my oldest started. I've got till 2027. I've seen a lot. I'm going to be here around a long time. I'm hoping they name one of the schools after me, maybe. But my point is so I have faith in Hoover schools and the teachers. It's just really all to me about transportation. I'm against the buses. I don't like that. I like to take my children to school, and so traffic is a huge concern. So that's really the only thing I wanted to interject as a thought, is maybe they get out there and drive some of these routes and really see what we're experiencing in some of these areas.
And I'll assure you I personally will do that.
Okay.
And I'll ask my staff to do the same so we can feel it, see it, and understand it.
Right.
Thank you, Wayne.
And one more thing also on the demographics and the future of growth in the city. Just keep in mind, a lot of people pick neighborhoods based on schools. So I think that's where other people get very heated. It's like, hey, I moved here and bought this house because I knew Susie was going here and Johnny was going here. Now you're fixing to change that on me, and I've invested in a home. So, take that in consideration also.
Thank you. Absolutely. And of course, what I want to say to that point is this, and that is, regardless of what school you go to in Hoover, I am hoping that you will find that to be an excellent school. I know we have preferences. I prefer to be here or here, but at the end of the day, I can't tell you a single school in this school district that is not an excellent school. And having said that, I'm remiss in not having acknowledged the principals who are in the room. So, Trace Crossings, we have who's at Bumpus. Who introduced me at Hoover High School. And Kara, is Kara here? Oh, there's Kara at South Chase Crest. Are there other principals in here? You're pointing, but I don't see. Oh, Vice Principal, I'm sorry, Sharita. Yes, thank you so much. There you are. I see you. Thank you. And we have some other principals here. Where's Terry Lamar? Didn't I see? No, I didn't see Terry. Who did I see? Okay, Quincy. Where's Quincy? There you go. Thank you so much. So I'm grateful that a number of our principal leaders and assistant principals are here in the room with us. So thank you to all of our principals. So, yes, thank you.
Hello, my name is Keith Parrish. I have 2 kindergartners at South Shades Crest. And I had one question, and this might have been covered at previous meetings or announcements. A lot of time and effort went into it last year. A lot of people went through a lot of emotions last year. They came up with a plan, and it changed once or twice, but it was finalized. What was wrong with that plan, and why are we having to do this all over again?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I'll tell you that when I was sitting down with a group of community folks, matter of fact, it was some of the representatives from the parent-teacher group, one of the parents said, that was such an emotional experience. I think if you go back out there again, you're just going to re-stir those emotions. Well, sometimes you're just kind of danged if you do, and you're kind of danged if you don't. So this was one of those situations where I felt like as a new superintendent, I would be completely in error not to say, I want to hear you. And again, I respect everything that happened preceding me and all the work that went into that, but I kind of need to see it. And I need to hear it. And I need you to share with me. And I'm certainly not suggesting there was anything wrong with any previous plans, but I really need this opportunity. That would be pretty quick and easy for me. I'd go, hey, here was a plan. I know not everybody liked it, but by the way, this is the one we're going to go with. By the way, I understand whatever plan we develop together, not everybody's going to like that either. I know that there is no perfect plan. I acknowledge that. I own it. I'm saying it to you. I realize we're not going to come up with a perfect plan that makes everyone sitting in this room, and certainly if you look at a larger population, there's just no way we're going to be able to make everybody happy with the end result. But again, I don't want you to feel that my wanting to come back out to you has anything to do with discrediting any work that preceded me. I need to see you. I need to hear you. I want you to give me your best thoughts and give us an opportunity to craft something that hopefully will work well across the district for our school. Again, not that everybody will be jumping up and down about the perfect plan we're presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy, for entertaining our questions and basically giving us a voice to voice our opinions, comments, as parents, as residents of the community. My name is Derry Redwine. I actually have 5 kids, two who have graduated from Hoover High School. Thank you, Dr. Hewlin, and our Principal Hewlin. Actually, I want to say this: both of those kids are on full scholarships in college. Yeah. That are coming through too, who are at Bucks Gap, and who's at South Shades Crest. Hey, Dr. Shaw. And they love it. We moved here some years ago, and I want to say my comment actually is for our parents and our teachers. And we understand that this is going to be a tough process because you can't please everybody. But what I want to do is encourage our parents. Is one, and also a special thank you to Pastor Gray, because you did something that was very important. So parents and teachers, our duty is to pray for our administrators. They have some tough decisions to make. Not going to make all of us happy. Probably going to make me mad too. But either way, pray for our administrators, pray for our teachers and parents, and just if we can approach it from a sense of community as to where we want to end up on the not just the state map, but the regional map, the national map. Our student scores, our performances, et cetera. So I want to encourage our parents is to take that community approach with first being prayerful, so that they come back with the best right decision, because Dr. Murphy did express that she wants to get this right, and she's speaking from the standpoint of the Hoover City School system, wanting to get it right the first time. Then on the other side, we as parents, and I've seen this happen when we were in Birmingham City Schools, is that when parents and teachers actually start coming together with a collective mind, with the students, the collective approach with the students in mind, something amazing happens. Is that school or those schools become marquee schools, marquee school systems within a city, and it doesn't happen overnight, but just when they come together, and I've seen it happen. When they come together, it produces a marquee model school system for others to somewhat get jealous about, and it's amazing how it works. That we basically can produce something out of what seems to be a chaos. It comes together and actually produces an end result that not only we as parents can be proud of, but also our administrators, our teachers who are also parents who are parenting our kids while they're under their watch. So I want to encourage our parents. I want to keep encouraging our teachers. We appreciate you for all that you do. You guys make us happy with what you do with our kids, and I'm definitely proud. Thank you, Dr. Hughes. Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you. All of our teachers, if you're with the school district in some capacity, stand up, because really we do need to acknowledge you. I see some teachers, and thank you. He said it beautifully, and I say ditto. What a great group of teachers. So thank you. Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Katie Holland, and I have 2 children at South Shades Crest. Man, we're really speaking out tonight, aren't we? I have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader, and I brought my notes that I just wrote down because I will forget. The first one is, do you see every school being impacted?
I see that every school may be potentially impacted. And from that, what I'm saying is that if you move a group of students to a school, that school was impacted, that impacted the next school, and very possibly some manner of the domino impact could be there. As one school is impacted, it rolls to the next school. So I don't want to stand here and say to you, I just know there's some schools that's not going to be impacted, so don't worry. I can't say that to you. I can't say definitively at all that all of them will be, or that a few of them won't be. I can't say that. But the potential is there for all of our schools to be impacted in some fashion.
Okay, and as I think Consuelo mentioned earlier, we had done a lot of studies just to, I guess, help people understand our traffic concerns.
Yes.
I know that we sent several emails last year to the rezoning. I think it was at the end of the year to the rezoning email. Have those notes and everything been considered, or would you like us to resend all of our studies? And I'm not trying to bombard you, but I want to make sure that you kind of hear what our concerns were.
Yes. And so what I would say to you is that at this point, I have not laid out any previous plan in front of me to study that particular plan. But I can tell you that I have that information. I can tell you that I have a lot of information. But I also would say to you, if you would like, please send to me and make sure that I don't miss anything that you think is important for me to make sure that I'm considering. So a resend would probably be appropriate.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got 4.
That's okay.
Okay, the other thing is our PTO board is made up of 2 primary neighborhoods. And so, if you moved one, then I guess I could say 75% will be wiped out. So I would just wanted to throw that out there because I think for the remaining balance, it could be detrimental to next year's plan. Does that kind of make sense? I think with the last plan, 10 of our 12 board members were gone. So, yay me, because I was left over to take over for the rest. So I would just say, when you're considering, look at who's active within the school. Does that make kind of sense?
Thank you. I think so. Melody's taking that note down, and we will call her if we're not clear as we progress with those notes. So thank you.
Okay, and then finally, it's just another statement. If you hadn't heard it clearly, traffic is our primary concern.
If I get confused, no. If I get confused, I'll reach back out, but I think it's traffic.
I'll send you an email.
Thank you. I do hear you. I just have to tell you, I'm moving here from Monroe County. How many of you have ever been to Monroe County? Okay, Monroeville, Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, peanut fields, cotton fields, and John Deere tractors. And so it didn't take me long at all to get into my car and hit the one light, which I usually could time pretty good, and didn't even have to stop. Right, speedy quick, I was at the office. 2 minutes, 3 minutes from where I lived, right to my office. The very first meeting I went to from my office to meet with the other, what's called District 5 school superintendents. I wandered and I had the GPS, and I'm trying to flip the map, and I'm as lost can be. And finally my GPS said, "You have arrived." I am looking at a cinder block wall with graffiti and kudzu. And I didn't see any of the other superintendents around and was convinced I had not made the right turns, but I had arrived according to GPS. I respect the traffic. I hear you, and I promise you, we're going to go out and we're going to drive this, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to give all due thought and consideration to the impact that has on you in the mornings when you're scurrying around trying to take care of your children and yourself.
And I would ask that you also go through the carpool line and try to get back out.
Don't have to do that too. But I understand if I do that, I can't even talk on my cell phone.
You won't even be.
You know what? We'll do that. I promise you. I will drive every school. I'll go through every car line. I will do that. That's my commitment to you. I'll do it. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Christy Bain. I have 2 kids, one at Bumpus and one at South Shades Crest. My concern is that Russet Woods was rezoned 5 years ago. So my son started off at Deer Valley and then came to South Shades Crest. And now I've got a daughter who, if anything happens, she can eventually start at South Shades Crest and be rezoned to somewhere else. I like the idea that we're thinking about long-term and how this is going to affect, but I also want you to take into consideration some neighborhoods have already been through this, and I would like to at least have one of my children finish elementary school before they get rezoned again. I mean, and I completely understand rezoning. It was a great experience for us, but and South Shades Crest welcomed us completely, fully. The PTO was wonderful. They even went as far as when my son came in, because it was optional for him, but my daughter was in kindergarten, they paired Deer Valley kids up. Like they put 2 Deer Valley kids at least in every classroom, so that they had a buddy with them. And that was great. But I would like to be able to say that my kids have been through a school without having to rezone over and over and over and over again.
Okay. Well, thank you. And remember that when children are moved, we won't just move one or two of them. There'll be a group that'll move together. So there will be every intention given to, not thrusting those children in a brand new classroom, no familiarity. And our principals are just awesome with that. I know that they'll accommodate, and you just said that in this situation that did happen. So I certainly can't promise you that your daughter won't be impacted.
Right.
But I can certainly promise you, because I know these elementary principals.
And it was just our neighborhood that was rezoned. It wasn't, they did the whole, let's make Bronx Gap and take 6th grade out of Bumpus and take the 5th grade out of the elementary schools. But it really was just our neighborhood that got moved from elementary schools. It wasn't any other neighborhood. So,
Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to this
hold
mic.
this one if you want.
I'm just going to this mic. Did you? I'm Dan Fulton, and first I just wanted to, I didn't realize it. Is that okay if I go? I'm a retired teacher, and I just wanted to say that I have a new neighbor on Alford Avenue. He's a cancer researcher at UAB, and he's bringing with him from Denver several NIH grants. And he's moving there because of the Hoover schools. He has 2 small children, and he wants them to be able to attend the Hoover schools. And when they attract these scientists in, and they're hired because they're bringing these NIH grants. And without the Hoover schools, he may not be here. And all that funding that was coming with him from Denver might not be in the Birmingham area at all. So that just emphasizes really how important having great schools in Birmingham and Hoover are. I've lived on Alford Avenue since 1956. I was telling Buddy here, I remember when the church was in the West End area, my grandmother attended there years ago when she lived. She was a retired teacher from North Alabama, and she retired there and lived in that area. But I just wanted to make 2 points. Number one, of course, pre-K is receiving a lot of attention, and most of the education community feel that we need to implement universal pre-K. I think the city of Hoover can afford that, and I would hope that would be included in the long-term plan so that we have universal pre-K, voluntary pre-K for 4-year-olds in the elementary schools. 2, I would ask that you not rule out new construction. In Trustville right now, it's my understanding they're building 2 elementary schools and renovating a 3rd. You may have a school that's not quite at capacity, but it's so difficult to reach that school because of the transportation. And it just might be necessary to build another school, or even more than 1 school. In regard to Hoover High School, most of the educators in fact, all of the educators I talked to agree that Hoover High School is too large, and we now are needing a 3rd high school in Hoover. Mountain Brook High School is 1,000 students. Homewood High School is 1,000 students. Vestavia Hills High School is 1,700, and Spain Park is 1,700. And they repeatedly score high, and that the number that we're now confronting at Hoover High School is becoming a school management, a real school management challenge. And so I would suggest that you entertain the idea of a 3rd high school. Now, the question comes up, well, how in the world do we fund such a high school? You can't build buildings or a high school without money. Gardendale's new high school cost almost $60 million. Well, in my opinion, the city of Hoover has the capacity to fund the high school. In Gardendale, they raised the sales tax a penny, increased the property tax slightly, and a lot of that money is going into their school system and into the construction that they have underway. In most areas in the area, the sales tax right now is 10%. If you go to the Summit and you shop, you pay 10%. And you go into Trustville or Gardendale, you pay 10%. I've talked to a lot of people in these areas, and I asked them, is there any discernible problem are you having from paying that 10%? And they say, no, we don't have any problem with that. In the case of Trustville, that money's going into the schools. And so then I then have to ask, well, there's no discernible problem. Why don't we do that in Hoover? And so, Mr. Smith and Mr. Lyda, I hope maybe you will demonstrate some leadership. Let's get 4 votes in the City Council, pass that extra penny. That will bring in over $20 million a year, each year, over $20 million in additional revenue from that one little penny. And I hope that that will be directed into the Hoover schools to implement that pre-K, to build maybe 1 or 2 more elementary schools, and a brand new high school. Thank you.
Thank you. I shared this same story with the group on Tuesday night, and Mr. Dan, I shared with you that I am a parent, and I told the group on Tuesday night, one of the saddest moments I've had recently was when I was headed back to my home in Greenville on the 4th of July. And was just kind of having some downtime in the car and being reflective and thinking. And I just had this moment of sadness, and it was about this. My daughter missed Hoover schools. My daughter missed having an opportunity to be in a school district as awesome and as great as Hoover City Schools. I've seen school districts that struggle. I've seen high poverty school districts. I've seen okay school districts. And I've seen a really, really very good school district, and it's Hoover. And my daughter happens to have an interest in the arts. And when I go in our elementary schools and see the little music rooms where they can do rhythms and they have a little stage and they can do theater, and I just think, oh, my daughter missed this. Now in graduate school, studying opera, but what an awesome experience that would have been if my daughter had had the Hoover experience. And that comes from my heart. I'm so sorry she missed what your children are getting to have. It's a pretty cool place to be. So I'm so proud of our school district, and thank you for letting me editorialize that. Now, yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. This microphone looks lonely. I just wanted to say that I know, well, first of all, I'm Beth Wood. I'm the PTO president of Trace Crossings Elementary School. And I just wanted to say that I know that we're all loyal to our schools, as I am mine. And also, my kids have benefited greatly from the small classroom sizes that we have right now. But with that being said, on behalf of the PTO, as well as the administration sitting here to my right, I can say that we welcome the additional students with open arms. We've got the facility, we've got the staff, but not only that, in commenting of what she said just a minute ago, PTO Executive Board, we can always open up positions. We've got some now. We would love for you guys to join us. We would love your ideas. So also wanted to say, if you guys have any questions, anything about Trace Crossings, our extracurricular programs, which we have a ton of, please let us know. Any of us will be happy to answer any questions. Dr. Murphy, you're awesome. I know you can answer questions also. But anything specific dealing with Trace Crossings, we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Trace Crossings is a great school, and accommodations to the leadership. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, my name is Shilpa Gagar, and I am the parent of a child at Trace Crossings, and in another year be the parent of 2 children at Trace Crossings. We moved to Hoover. We lived in Homewood when my son was young. We outgrew our home and got tired of having to fix everything when a house is 50 years old. And so we moved to Hoover because we heard that the schools were good, and we liked it. We liked the diversity of the community. Hoover is a much larger version of the school district that I grew up in. And we've loved Trace Crossings. It has been wonderful. I look forward to my daughter going there. And so for anybody who, just as Beth said, if anybody has any questions, I can speak to my experiences. But I'd like to speak on a couple of things. And one mentions what Mr. Fulton over here said, is talking about us as a community. I know that we all feel personally impacted, and we are loyal to our elementary schools. We worry about our children. And I speak to parents who live in the general Birmingham area, as many of us do. And many of them will come up to me and they say, well, We're trying to decide on public school versus private school. We didn't grow up here in this country. We don't know about the public schools. And we hear that Vestavia is the best. And so that's a perception that's out there. And we spend a lot of time right now infighting, trying to figure out which schools our kids are going to go to and which is better and this and that. And well, that school maybe has lower test scores and this one has slightly higher test scores. And I think that what we need to think about is how we as a community can make sure that all of our schools are the best and that we're considered the best school district in this area. You know, I don't want to have to tell parents, well, you need to see for yourself, and yes, they say that, but I've had my personal experience, and it is really good, but that's not what they're hearing from other people in the general area. And I'd also like to speak to some personal experience in that I was a child who was rezoned. When I was in 5th grade, I'd been in the same elementary school from kindergarten till 5th grade. Our schools had been built for a larger population, and as the population aged, there were less of us in there. We got to the point that in 5th grade, there was 2 5th grade classes with 30-something kids each. There wasn't enough for 3, but there was way too many for 2. And we all got rezoned, all of us. And I know that as parents, we are so concerned for our kids, but sometimes we forget that kids are pretty resilient. We moved as a whole group. All the friends moved over, and we just made new friends that we knew more people when we went to middle school. You know, so it worked out as a positive experience. We didn't go to middle school not knowing as many people. And the other thing that I find a little strange, having grown up in a different part of the country, I grew up in New York, I was born and raised up there, is the situation regarding buses. My parents went to meetings for 5 years, constantly, to get universal busing for us. Of course, by the time they finally got it, I had to get bused anyway, because the school that I went to was not in our neighborhood. My brother went to the school that was in our neighborhood, and I went to one that was about 4 miles away. Not that much. And I think that traffic is an issue, but I think that we underutilize our buses. If I put my child on a bus, I would put my child on a bus. I don't have a choice. We don't get a bus. So I have to drive my child to school and deal with the carpool line. And because I don't work full-time, I work part-time, but because of the times that I do work, I can't pick up my child in the carpool line. But even days that I'm not working, I don't pick him up from the carpool line. I wait a half an hour and go to extended day because I don't want to deal with it. So I would enjoy being able to put him on a bus and then be able to pick up from a bus. So I think that sometimes we do worry about our own kids and we have our personal experiences, but I think that we need to think larger as a community of how can we make our schools the best and what can we do to make sure that all of our kids get a good education and it's the best in the Birmingham area.
Yeah. Thank you. Points well made. Brother Buddy, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we were just chatting a little bit before this, and you know, he said something that was just really important. He said, you know, if any one of our schools isn't doing well, it's all of us. And so I think I used to have a superintendent who said it to us like this: we are a school district, not a district of individual schools. And so the point is this: we're in this together. Every one of our schools needs to be an outstanding school. We need to, other than I get the traffic and the other issues, but we should just be excited for any of our schools. We should want all of our schools to be successful. And yet I do understand the traffic flow and the other things that you're sharing, but I do encourage us to think community, think all of us. We want all of our schools to be successful. We want all of our schools to be reflected. And I have news for Vestavia. We're at the top. It's not them. So, media, cover that for me. John, put that in there, won't you, John?
Hi, my name is Dana. I'm a parent at Trace Crossings. Oh, sorry, my voice is kind of scratching. Well, my issue, I can only go by what happened last year at that meeting. And I can only go by the school that my son attends. And I do stay in an apartment, but that doesn't mean I'm uneducated.
I do too. So we're in it together. Nothing wrong with that.
Well,
I'm in an apartment.
Exactly. That was my point, because last year it kind of made it seem as if, well, we need to move all the apartment kids, which at my apartment it is more blacks than, you know, but there are whites, there are Hispanics, and some of us, I don't know what they are, but there's other people there as well. But it kind of made it seem as if, well, oh, they all moved from
because they're not as educated. Well, I went to Thompson High School. I graduated with an advanced diploma. I lived in one of the best neighborhoods there, and I moved to this one because Hoover is a popular community. It just is. And living in an apartment, that rent is not cheap. And, it's just where I'm at right now. My issue is, from what I saw on the last proposal, that Trace had, not as many students, half capacity. But it wants to bring everyone else into the school and make the apartments that I stay at lead, which are a majority of blacks. And I just kind of felt that that was a huge issue for me and some of the other parents who didn't show, but that made it seem like it was just a race thing, even though we're all one, and that's the human race. But I just felt, as you mentioned in your introductory, how some kids felt bullied with the other issue and not embraced. Well, to me, that's not embracing me. You saying because I stay in an apartment, I'm African American, that my kids shouldn't attend this school. That it's too many of us here, and we need to make it a little bit more not minority. So my issue is, if trades need more students, I welcome this way. I know school should be over, its limit. There needs to be a small amount of students to the teacher ratio. But if it comes up the way it did last time, I don't feel that we should have to leave so that everyone else can come in. That didn't make sense to me. So,
thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate her point. And you know what? All of our children are all of our children. And it doesn't matter if those children's parents have them being reared in a single-family dwelling or in a multi-family complex. The children that belong to us, we should be embracing all of our children, and we need to make the very best situation we can for all of our students. So thank you for sharing your thought. Yes, sir?
I'd like to say hello to everybody. My name is Chris Howell. I'd like to come at it from a child's perspective because I'm attending Hoover High School right now in many of the advanced classes. I'd like to say that I understand the issue with traffic. I have to drive over by the school every day. Very, very struggle. But as far as the child's emotional standpoint and social standpoint, I think it's beneficial for them to swap up schools, because when I was a kid, we had to move from apartment complex to apartment complex. I probably went to at least 3 or 4 elementary schools. I went to Rocky Ridge, South Shades Crest, Deer Valley, and I know there's one more I can't remember it off the top of my head. And it just gave me a chance to expand. I met new people, made new friends, and then by the time I got to the middle and high school level, I already knew, Billy Bob Joe and Sally from all my years at different schools. That helped me connect. I'd like to address the fact that Hoover High School is phenomenal academically, and I'd love to see my little brother, who is here today, branch out and go to the middle school and then go to the high school, just because no matter what he wants to do, they've got the engineering academy, which I participate in, which is phenomenal. What we're doing there is just amazing. Education Academy, Finance Academy, they're taking field trips to everywhere. You're going to Atlanta, New York, a bunch of places. And then classes like AP Seminar, which I'm in as well. If you're not familiar with it, it's a writing course in order to help the students better develop opinionated statements and things like that. Only 300 schools around the world have that program, and we're one of them. It's just phenomenal. We picked up the AP research this year, so we're doing good.
That's pretty awesome that this young man would come to the microphone in front of all these adults and stand here and share his position. And I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And we have about 10 more minutes, so formulate those last thoughts, and we certainly want to make sure we answer your questions. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Stan Ferguson. I have a son. He's in the 2nd grade here at 10 South Shades Crest, which is one of the best schools I ever heard of or anything. Long story short, when me and my wife, who she had to take him almost his bedtime, was preparing to have our child. We lived outside the city of Hoover. We transferred here after she spent probably about a whole 9 months looking at different schools, looking at the ratio of students to teachers. We came to South Shades Crest, and the principals, both of them know my son, unfortunately or fortunately by name. But my major concern is, and I travel a lot outside working and doing other things. I just got in today from Tallahassee because I wanted to be here tonight, because I want to know what is the ratio, how would that affect the teacher to student ratio? Because at South Shades Crest, the teachers there, like I can't say about other schools, they are phenomenal, is not enough. You know, they're very hands-on. The PTO is outstanding. They keep everybody informed of what's going on. And one of the reasons why my wife, which I just followed, chose that school, we actually moved into an apartment and waited till a house came available to attend that school, was because of the feedback, the notoriety of how the students and the teacher ratio was and is now. So when we're rezoning, what ratio are we looking at? Is that going to change dramatically, or understand the question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. That's a great question. Kara's going to be asking for a pay raise tomorrow. We just keep getting these good things said. So thank you. On the average in Hoover, we have a 14-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. Now, that doesn't mean that some classes aren't a little higher or vice versa, but we're right at a 14-to-1 students-to-teacher ratio. That's pretty awesome, because I've been in some high-poverty school districts where 32, ooh, can we squeeze another one, 34, and then you go, well, there's one more, but we really don't have enough teachers or space to split it. And, you know, I've been in schools where there was a 35-to-1 students-to-teacher ratio. That's tough. So one of the things that I believe that makes Hoover uniquely Hoover is the fact that I believe, and someone can correct me should I be wrong, but I think one of the commitments that was the genesis, or part of the genesis of the school district, was a commitment to keep the student-teacher ratio less than the state says is eligible to be in that room. And so I've said this far and wide, there are some things that make us uniquely who we are. And I don't want to do anything that impedes making us uniquely who we are. And so does the rezoning mean that as children move, some teachers will have to move? Yeah. Will buses have to reroute? Yeah. Everything gets impacted. But one of the things that I feel like I'm committed to, and that our board is committed to, is we're not interested in overloading classrooms and, you know, having 25, 28, 32 children in the classroom, but being very sensitive to how important it is to have smaller classrooms, and particularly for that opportunity for project-based learning and blended learning and all the things that we know have great value to our children. Okay? Yes, sir.
I'm Brant Wagner. I have a first grader in South Shades Crest Elementary. This is not really a question, but a parameter for your traffic study that you're going to have to do. As somebody brought up parameters earlier, I actually dropped my daughter off very early. If you get there at 6:55, you can drop your kid off at 7 at South Shades Crest. I'm the 8th car in line, so I get to work very easy, and most people don't have that benefit. So I would say it was fair for you guys to make sure that you're there at peak time. You can drop off at 7, but the time limit's 7:45. No cheating. You have to be there 7:15 to 7:30 to feel the real pain. And also, because I have done it at that time, it's not near as much fun. But also, I would say the afternoon, also especially South Shades Crest, when kids are getting ready to come out at 2:40 or 2:45, that line of traffic goes all the way back around the curve up to where they were getting ready to put the Walmart in. So afternoon is an issue as well.
Okay, so not only do we will go during peak times, we'll do morning, we'll do afternoon. Thank you. We will do that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Sandy Johnson. I have 3 children. 2 have graduated from Hoover, going all the way through. 2 who have graduated are on full scholarship at Hoover High School and Engineering Academy, and 1 is getting grad school paid for as well. So, thank you, Mr. Gillen and Carol. We do still have one there, and I want to speak. We've heard a lot of traffic, and I do sympathize with that. I understand that. But as the mother of a teen driver,
this community school thing is very important to me. It's 10 minutes from my door to Hoover High School. And basically, when she's low on gas, she can just go down the hill and pray. Going home is a little bit more of a challenge. Just that's something that I would want you to keep in mind, that we have a lot of teenage drivers, and it's a long way to the other high school. And her safety is paramount. And I'm so thankful for the administrators at Hoover, because once she gets on that campus, I feel like she is safe. And it is, we have a safe community, but that's just, there are a lot of teen drivers, and we want them to be able to stay in their community. So that's one piece of it. Another piece, there's so much diversity, even when we look just the same, we have a lot of different thoughts. I'm not afraid of a big high school. It has served our family very well. When they went to college, they knew how to create small communities within a larger environment. That was a skill that has helped them time and time again. And as I now watch them as young adults, I'm so thankful that they're able to navigate those new experiences, that new job. I've got to find a way to fit in this community, and they're able to do that. And I think Hoover prepared them well for that. I know that money will likely have to be spent. I don't believe that a third high school is the answer. I believe that we have property, we can maximize some of our resources in our existing high school. We might have one bigger than the other, but we can maximize the use of those facilities. We can add buildings over there. We can, it doesn't have to be a third high school. The young man was talking about the engineering academy. It is beyond phenomenal. And there's those academies exist at Spain Park as well. But I just don't know, even with $60 million, if you can replicate what you have in our two high schools right now. So I would seek to just look at every avenue to maximize those pieces and maybe add on to something, but I'm not sure that starting from the ground up. And I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Williams, and I have 4 children in Hoover City Schools. I have a junior at Hoover High who has been very welcomed and has participated. He's on the Hoover football team, he's in Law Academy. He's also in Leadership Birmingham, and he's been exposed to that only through starting as a kindergartner at South Shades Crest and going through the entire Hoover City Schools. I have 2 at South Shades Crest, and I have 1 at Bumpus. I'm originally from California, and I did my college education here, and I work in DC. When I'm not traveling, I work from home. So I am, constantly trying to be in tune with what's happening with my children. And I refuse to move because I love Hoover City Schools. Good. And I just want to echo some of the parents. I could have had the opportunity to move, but because I know what has been invested and what my children are having the opportunity to receive, I want that to continue. And I wanted to say hats off to you, Dr. Murphy, for what you're doing, and also to your staff, to the teachers. But I want to stand here as a parent to say that it will not be a perfect decision. And I know that I will potentially be impacted by that. But I am going to trust that the right decision will be made. And I just have to say that I love South Shades Crest. I have to say that Dr. Williams shows you guys know me personally. And when I'm in DC, I know that my children are in good hands. So
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. She mentioned my staff, and so I need to introduce my staff. Tammy Dunn is in our Tammy's in our curriculum department. Ron Dotson's son is getting married on Saturday. Correct. And I called him tonight and said, don't come. You have your hands full. You go be with your family. Tammy, thank you for coming and representing curriculum. Kathy Ante is our CSFO in our school district. Melody Green is assistant superintendent for us. Jason Gaston, media, public relations. And did I miss anyone? These folks are awesome, so thank you so much to my staff. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Myers. I have a child at Hoover and at Bumpus. And my question is, I know that you're wanting to try to get this finalized and all the schools rezoned. Is this something that you anticipate that all the schools will be affected for next year? Because as a junior, I would not, we're not going to have this finalized until March or April. Or are we potentially saying a junior could be moved across to another high school, or a kid that's in these schools now that we have Rock Gap 2 years, Bumpus 2 years? Is it going to be effective for all the kids for the upcoming fall, or is it basically just to fix the schools that are overcrowded and one that is underutilized just for the upcoming fall?
Yes. The potential exists for most of our schools to be impacted. I am fairly comfortable to say that at this point with our high schools, I don't see us playing fruit basket turnover with our high schools. But having said that, if y'all will take 99%, which always gives me wiggle room, I think we start looking elementary, middle school, how we start to be able to craft this and build that. But having said that, please allow us to continue the work to see how this does impact schools, some schools, all schools, some children, certainly not all children. But the potential does exist for this to impact all schools, but not all children. Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Guy. In year 16 as a Hoover school parent, 4 to go. Mr. Hewlin, you got 4 more years of us. I've got I want to bring up a few things from the last iteration of this that I thought were big issues then, just to, so you'll have that as a point of reference for this iteration. The idea of neighborhood schools has come up repeatedly, and I think that was a huge issue last year. It was for us. And my nutshell definition of a neighborhood school, and I think they are very important, that's why a lot of people choose where they set their roots, is not a school that you drive by in order to get to your school. The neighborhood school is the one that you drove by. Maybe I said that wrong. I said it right, okay. And that particularly came up with respect to my family when, with the last rezoning plan, we would have been affected at the high school level. We would have driven by Hoover High, where my one is graduating and one will graduate this year. We've been very happy, and we've been happy with Hoover High. To go to Spain Park, and as I said then, I would love for the kids to go to Spain Park. It's a fabulous school if I lived on that side of town. But I cringed at the thought of putting eventually my 16-year-old daughter on 459 and 65 to get to her school, bypassing the neighborhood high school. So neighborhood schools are very important. I think you'll hear that time and time again in the meetings to come. Traffic patterns, obviously you've heard a lot about that. Out in the Martinwood area, that wasn't such a big factor for us as it certainly is for the people on South Shades Crest Road. However, when I considered the aforementioned I-459, I-65 traffic, that did give me a cold shiver. The speaker on this side of the room before me mentioned the size of Hoover High, and I would reiterate what she said. I would much prefer, my children too have had much success in finding their small communities. Theirs have centered around band primarily, and that's been a great program for my children to find their group and not get lost in the crowd. And they've had great experiences. So I would much prefer, if there has to be growth, that it be where my children are now rather than 12 miles across town. Last comment, this is sort of a question, sort of a comment for consideration, is something that did come up last time too, is you mentioned that growth will be factored into the plan. And I think something that really got under a lot of people's skin was the idea that they would be moved from their neighborhood schools to make room for people whose houses weren't even built yet. And I would like to hear you comment on how that might be factored in.
Well, now that you phrase it that way, it sounds pretty silly, doesn't it? We have a good working relationship with the city. They are sharing, as I said, with us that potential growth. I don't really anticipate us going, hey, let's move these folks because 3 years from now, this many homes are going to be built. But in saying that, we're studying that. We will give thought to that. But I really can't see me sitting down and rationalizing that we're going to move a whole host of people in anticipation of some buildings that will come. I think it's prudent for us to know where those growth sites are, and understanding that those growth sites might impact us another 3 years or 5 years from now. You very well could be coming back to the church for a conversation, but I certainly don't see me saying, no, let's move all these folks because 5 years from now, 3 years from now, I expect this land to sell and these homes to be built. But your question is well phrased, and thank you for that. Okay? And so, this is the last minute to jump up and run to this mic. Otherwise, I'll take this as a last question.
Just real quick, my name is Lori Douglas. I have a 7th grader at Bumpus and a sophomore at Hoover High School. Everyone has spoken about how to get to that zoning plan and whatever. When it does get approved, and you're saying middle of March, give or take?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yes.
You've got football teams starting practice. You've got cheerleading tryouts. You've got SGA elections. You've got PTOs trying to elect board members. You've got band members starting to practice. You've got color guard tryouts. You've got all of these kids who are wanting to figure out, where do I need to go to try out? How is that whole framework going to be affected?
Yeah.
Because that actually impacts the kids themselves.
Absolutely. And that is one of the reasons that I said I'm 99% sure that as it relates to our high schools, that really complicates that whole thing. So her point is well made as we are getting teams and cheerleaders and whatever together to get a cheerleader team selected, and then we go, oh, by the way, you 6 on the squad are no longer in this school. So I hear that, and I'm with you, and it's certainly why I said I can be 99% sure that hopefully we will not in this plan have any impact on our 2 high schools, but build it up from the bottom. Now, those of you with elementary and middle school students, please don't throw tomatoes as I exit the church. But if you heard her question, it's a very important question she posed, and that is the impact of selecting teams and squads, and then saying to those students after being selected for a team or squad, by the way, that's not the school you're in anymore. So, great question, and it's certainly one of those things that my staff and I are sitting down debriefing on these kinds of things, and that's a real heartburn, and that's a real critical question deserving a very thoughtful answer. Thank you for the question. I want to thank you for coming tonight. I hope that we've been able to answer some of your questions. We have certainly, I've been watching these people write vigorously all night long and take your notes and put your thoughts down. And we will post those up to our website under the resources. Please, if you weren't comfortable to come to the microphone to talk, but there's something you want to share or say, remember that we have the site out there that you can go to give us feedback. I'll hang on for a bit here. I'd rather not have a 2-hour meeting after the meeting we just had, but certainly if you want to come up and share or say or ask or tell or whatever, I will certainly afford you that opportunity to have access to me tonight if you just weren't comfortable to come to the microphone. So again, thank you very much. Awesome school district, great teachers, great administrators. Sounds self-serving, but we have some outstanding, we have all outstanding board members. I'm grateful for the 2 who are with us this evening and for our city leaders who are with us. Thank you very much. Thanks.